This is where business ideas and passions turn into profit. Whether you're dreaming of becoming your own boss, but don't know how to get started, or have already started a side hustle and wish to grow it exponentially, your host, Victoria Wieck, can help you turn your passion-based business ideas into profit. Welcome to Million Dollar Passion. Here is your host, world-renowned jewelry designer and home shopping TV celebrity, Victoria Wieck.
Welcome to another episode of the Million Dollar Passion podcast. I am so excited today, especially, we have some amazing guests with just incredible expertise who are generous with their time and expertise every week. But this particular guest, her story is so familiar to me because, as you know, if you're listening to my podcast, you know a lot about my story. And her way of sort of, getting to the end goal is very similar to everything about her. It's very similar to my own story. I had to have her on. Her name is Fabienne Fredrickson. It's like fabulous in Japanese currency, Fabienne Fredrickson. And she's the author of a bestseller, the Leveraged Business program. And it's she also, runs an amazing community of women, thousands of women on her website, boldheart.com. Anyway, before I, ramble on about her expertise and her background, I'm just going to have her come on the show and explain to us why she does what she does and why that's really important to have some sanity and balance in our lives. Welcome to the show, Fabienne.
Thank you, Victoria. I'm delighted to be with you.
So tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and why you wrote your book and so on. Just give me like a 2-minute thing so that we can.
Sure. Happy to. I realized back in 1999 that I was unemployable and had to get out of corporate because it was never going to make me happy. I left corporate to open up my own nutrition practice out of my home. And I thought, I've been in advertising, marketing, and sales. I'll fill my practice. It'll be fine. If I could just make $65,000 a year, which is what I last made in corporate, I'll be so happy. And I realized that that's when you're selling yourself, it's not as easy to do that. And it was a lot of dark nights of the soul. Do I stay self-employed, but very unhappy and struggling? Or do I go back? And I decided to stay self-employed, create a client attraction system for myself. And I filled my practice within 8 months to full capacity. Other people started asking how I did it. A year and a half later, I became a business coach, and I've been teaching women for the last 21 years how to use this client attraction system to get to 10K a month consistently. And then once I went to multiple 6 figures and then multiple 7 figures, I've been at multiple 7 figures for 14 years now. Other people started asking me, how did you do this, especially with 3 small kids at home? And I said, let me just reverse engineer what I did. And first I leveraged my team, leveraged my systems, etc. And it has now become a proven, what we call recipe, a proven recipe that you follow if you want to go from overwhelmed at 6 figures to multiple 6 figures and eventually 7 figures with your life back. And I believe that most people who are at that critical juncture of 6 figures are overwhelmed. They work evenings and weekends. They don't pay themselves enough. They spend too many. They say too often, one more email and mommy will be right there, with pangs of guilt. But it doesn't have to be this way. And so this is the process that I've reverse engineered, and now I teach to thousands of people around the world.
So that's really interesting because I've been there. I've been, as a daughter of immigrants, I was told that, and I'm sure many people who are listening right now, and I'm not sure if that's you too, but my parents told me that you got to get hyper educated, become a doctor or a lawyer, or, get an MBA, get yourself a great job with upward mobility. And that was the quickest way and the surest way to reach the American dream. And I did all that. And I did get my job. And then what I quickly found out was that, the more I worked, well, the more higher up I got, the more hours came with that higher pay, and never got to see my kids. And, and you have to kind of wonder, like, why am I doing all this? Right. You have to wonder, what's the end goal? I mean, you want to provide for your family and all that, but you aren't there. I mean, the most important part of what you're providing for your family, you're not there. Other people are taking care of your kids and all that. So now fast forward, and for those of you who are listening right now, who are overwhelmed, and I talk to you, many of you, quite often, because a lot of you live locally here and you see me, and you're doing mid six figures and you're overwhelmed. You're working crazy hours. You're working 7 days a week. You got your phone, email system, attached to your hips. And like you said, one more email, one more client, one more, product to develop, one more thing. And I think, when my kids were younger, you think, oh, it's going to get better. When I get the next 100 grand or something, then that comes with, more work. So it's very easy to get overwhelmed and not even realize that you're overwhelmed. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs actually, especially women, you're now working more hours than you did in corporate. You're making less money than you did in corporate with less job security, and you don't have healthcare benefits. You don't have a lot of the stuff that came with the structure of the corporate. So you wonder, like, especially those of you who have great college degrees, you're like, should I go back to work because my life might be simpler, or do I stick with this? So I love it that you have come up with, not only did you survive this, but you've come up with a system that other people can follow. And I love, the Leveraged Business book goes over the system of how you can, I guess, economize, scale, do all that stuff with small children. So tell us a little bit about just the meat of the book. What's the whole premise of it, and what does the reader get out of that at the end?
Yeah. What I realized long ago is the recipe to get to 10K a month, to get to six figures in the first place, requires a lot of digging deep and doing everything yourself. It requires long hours, just learning. You're building the plane as you fly it. But once you get to 100,000 or more in your business, what got you here won't get you there. There meaning 7 figures with 14 to 16 weeks of unplugged vacations a year. For you to grow from 6 figures and get your life back, you actually need to do less better. And so this is about really looking at the fact that I believe there is no such thing as a self-made millionaire, in the sense that you cannot do it alone. You need the right people that you can trust so that you can stop white knuckling it and let go. Going from the control enthusiast to the person who can delegate more fully to the people in her care. And then it's about creating systems for everything. Most of us start our business based on our personality. It's us doing everything. And after a while, the mindset that needs to be adopted is that we become a process-driven company, not a personality-driven business. And when everything is documented and everything has checklists and everything runs like a well-oiled machine, fewer things fall through the cracks. When you take these two elements, Victoria, you know this because this is how you've been so successful. Because the right systems and processes are there, you can fully delegate to your team. And this allows you to leverage your time. So you've leveraged your team, your systems. And now, instead of being a doer who's got her hands in everything, who's become a bottleneck for the company, you begin to use your time in a more leveraged way, focused entirely on exponential growth activities, what we call in the book EGAs, exponential growth activities. And those are the things that will, like several of our clients will get to 1 million in a year or two because they're using their exponential growth activity days to create way different results. And you leverage your business model. Instead of working hours to dollars, you're working one to many, scaling your business. And there's more, of course, but if we just focus on just those 4 first activators out of the 8 activators, that's when you can rapidly grow your business. It doesn't matter what business you're in. It doesn't matter what you do. This is proven to work when you follow those processes.
So I agree with you on that. And I think most people listening will agree that you can't do it all. You do need some help. I'm going to actually be a contrarian and ask you a couple of questions because that's what this show is all about. But the first thing is the agreement part. I agree with you that, you look at companies that are really successful out there. You look at McDonald's, for example. McDonald's actually started right here in San Diego, not too far from where I live right now. First it was the owners flipping the burgers and, packing them and talking about it, going, door to door, buying all this stuff, all the relationships were with them. All the know-how was with them. And then they realized there was more money franchising, actually systemizing what they're doing. And now they're actually talking about a robot doing it. It's really like foolproof system that they have. There's nothing that could go wrong in their system. It's got 21 steps to make their fries, and you don't skip one. It's exactly the same. So I agree with you that building a system is absolutely critical to growing. You could grow. I mean, you can grind it out. You could grow. You can work more hours and grow. But that is not a quality of life that we all, I guess, aspire to have. Nor was it that what we envisioned, right? Just like us working more hours. So when you don't delegate and when you don't realize this, when all your relationships with your vendors, with your clients, with your students, with your IT person, it's all with you. That means every phone call has to be initiated by you, answered by you. And, so you don't have enough time of the day to do that. So now if we buy that, and I'm sure, like I explained thoroughly, that's actually really essential to growing. You work with a lot of entrepreneurs, especially female entrepreneurs. And we're very, control freaks. This is how we became entrepreneurs, right? So it's really hard to let go of that control. I mean, do you think that it's because we don't trust other people? We don't trust something is not going to go well? Why is it so hard for people to let go of some control? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think
what's your experience with that?
From my experiences, very few of us, when we open up our own business, are taught how to hire strategically. So what happens is when we are basically freaking out, working 16 plus hours a day, we just need to try. Our instinct is to find anybody with a pulse to stop the bleeding, right? And so we're just grabbing the first person who seems sane, or our neighbor or our friend. We say, okay, just do this. And we're just focused. There's so many plates spinning in the air that we don't hire strategically. We don't use assessments to put the right person in the right seat. We don't have, most of us, everything documented so that even a 6-year-old could follow the process. And what happens is we say, do this. And I want it by tomorrow. I'm exaggerating, but not really. And I call this drive-by delegating, which is basically you're throwing a hot potato at somebody. Yeah. Now, on the receiving end, that assistant, that whatever, even a CEO that you hire doesn't really know what to do with the hot potato. You haven't explained what it's supposed to look like. You haven't given examples. You didn't really take into account how much else they have on their plate. You didn't tell them when it was really realistically due. And so they either stand there frozen, a lot of them in fear because they don't want to disappoint you, but they have no idea how to get it done, or they go down a rabbit hole for 3 weeks and then they come back scared and proud of the work and they say, here you go. And you look at this and you say, what? 3 weeks into this, and this this is not at all what I wanted. I could have done it better myself.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think that, sometimes we entrepreneurs tend to hire that people we like or people we think they could do like multiple things like we do? Or do you think that you're better off hiring like a specialist that you are not good at? For example, like I'm horrible at IT, and I would hire somebody who talks like me, who's creative, and all that, which would be a real mistake in the IT world, for my business, because in IT you really want to have a system that works, you can count on all the time. Do you think that that's one of the problems? And I'm sure in your book, because you wrote a whole book about it, it's called The Leveraged Business. What do you think? Are we better off hiring people that are expert specialties that we don't, we're not good at? Because like as an entrepreneur, you're used to doing everything, and we expect our employees to do like half as much as we do. That's a lot of entrepreneurs tell me that. And the reality is, most people who are going to do 20 things at the same time aren't going to be working for anybody. They'll be working for themselves.
Here's a secret that I used to get to $1 million, and I hope it's helpful for the people who are here listening. And then I'll talk about the 4 ways that I've discovered hires the best people. When I started taking assessments early on in my being a business coach, I realized that I am a high idea generator who loves to start new things, an entrepreneur, because I'm half French, I know this. Entreprendre means to initiate. And many of us entrepreneurs, 95% of us, from my recollection, love to start new things, but are not also wired to finish them. Right. So the secret that I figured out is that I don't have to change. I am who I am, but I must surround myself with people who are wired to finish things, who are not coming up with, 16 fabulous ideas a day, but more who like to dot the I's, cross the T's, and wired to follow through. And the more you have people like that on your team, the more they can help you discern whether all those 16 ideas are actually worth working on. But basically, they'll take whatever you're working on and make it happen. So that's one of the ways that you get there. And because when you are looking to hire strategically, what I've discovered is you're looking for 4 things. The first one is skill set. Can that person actually do what you want them to do? The second is experience. Have they done this a lot before? And believe it or not, those 2 things are not always necessary. If you don't have a lot of funds, you could hire, as we did in the beginning, some 23-year-old from college, and you teach them the skill set, and eventually they have the experience. But what is non-negotiable is the last 2 quadrants, the last 2 elements, which are wiring. Are they wired for the job? And a lot of times we hire a person to do coding and admin stuff, input, which is very dry. And we also want them to pick up the phone and sell.
Right. No.
And you can't do that, right? So the wiring is really strategic and so helpful. And that is non-negotiable. And then the 4th thing is culture fit. If you have, so in my company, we are always improving, above and beyond, positive and loving. We own it. And when we speak up, if somebody on my team is not positive and loving, if they don't own it, if they are trying to clock in and clock out, they're not going to fit with us, and they're not going to fit with our clients. Yeah. So the culture fit is absolutely necessary. And once you've got at least the bottom 2, which is the wiring and the culture fit, and ideally, you've got the skill set and the experience. That's when, with the right systems, you train them, you onboard them and train them in a certain way that eventually you can let go and delegate, safely, especially, and show them how to pay for themselves in the first 3 to 4 months. And then you can move on knowing that you've got the right team you trust, They're taking non-necessary things off your plate, and then you can go and scale the business.
That's really interesting. I love the word you used there, believe it or not. And this is like just the sweet little sound to entrepreneurs listening. Delegate safely. Because, I understand it's like your other child, when you give birth to your business, especially those of you who are in that physical business, restaurant business, those hours are grinding. Every single time you serve a meal, that's your product going out there, the consistency. And when you delegate, it's kind of scary because your reputation, your future, everything is on the line. And this is why I think we have this, especially the perfectionists. I happen to be one that kind of used to be guilty of that. I let go a long, long time ago, just because my kids were sick a lot, and I had to count on some people. Bless you. I had to count on some people, and I had to let go, and that was the best thing that ever happened to me. But what I love about your book, and I love the title here. Listen very carefully, ladies. The leverage business, how you can go from overwhelmed at 6 figures to 7 figures and getting your life back. And I think that that's what we all want. We want to be able to grow working fewer hours with, less resources, really, because you're much more efficient and you can, scale upwards. And once you hit 7 figures, and I've done the 8 and the 9 figures, I can tell you that it's much easier going from 7 to 8, and then the 8 to 9 kind of happens on its own, almost kind of happens on its own. So, Fabienne, can you, if you were giving a young entrepreneur today, a millennial who's got just, my daughter is 30, she has a child, and, she started to start her own business pretty young, just realizing like there was no way I can sustain this life. Her child was born during COVID. And so she was, very, she spent a lot of time at home, and then she's like, oh, now I got to go back to work. What do I do? So what advice would you give to a younger you, maybe 10, 20 years ago?
It all depends on if the person already knows what kind of business they would want to start. And if the answer is no, one of the things that I have people look at, it's a 4-question process that really doesn't need to take more than 30 minutes. An hour is ideal. And it's to answer the 4 ikigai questions. Reason for being. And the questions are this: what do I love and what am I passionate about? What am I exceptionally good at, even if I take it for granted? What does the world need? And how can I get paid?
Right.
And when you ask yourself these 4 questions, you receive a huge amount of clarity as to what your world can, what you can do in the world in a way that has you passionate, using your skills so that it lands, it's relevant with what the world needs according to why you're here and how you can get paid. When you have those 4 things, it's about giving yourself permission to start. The permission train isn't coming, especially for young women. We're waiting for people to give us permission. No, you give yourself permission and you go out there. Victoria, I would say self-belief is a huge thing. And I know you could say, oh my gosh, self-belief, is that really the secret? But I'll tell you this, in my communities of women who are from all walks of life, at all different levels of business, this feeling of inadequacy among women, of I'm not good enough, I don't know enough, or I'm too much, I'm not, this self-belief changes everything. And then it's about learning how to get to 10K a month, and then how to get to $1 million and more. It starts with that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. And I think on the whole self-belief thing, if you go into your first entrepreneurship business without fully believing in your business or yourself, what happens is, and you don't have a community like Fabienne's community, or you don't have a mentor like her, what would happen? And if it's not her, get someone, because what happens is if you don't believe in it and you're like wondering, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to really work? And you're spending your time doing that. The first time something goes wrong, you're going to give up. The very first time.
Well, especially because, if I may, society is set up to, and our school system is set up to create workers in factories, if you will. So the minute you hit a bump in the road, your best friend, your sister, even your spouse will say, oh, maybe you're just not cut out for this. Maybe it's time for you to go get a real job.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you're hearing all these toxic voices, which is creating toxic thinking in your own head. Society really rewards the masculine, especially in business. You've got these little people, if you've got kids, and you feel guilty all the time because when you're working, you're thinking about them. And when you're with the kids, you're thinking about work. And there are so many toxic voices that have you question whether you are cut out for this. And when you get yourself in a community, whoever's it is, of not an accidental community, and by that I mean neighbors or the people at the club or whatever, but you get yourself into an intentional community. Not, forgive me, gentlemen, if you're listening to this, but many women benefit greatly from being in a community of intentional community of other women in business. Why? Because we are wired differently. We are wired to need to talk ideas through. We don't need everybody to fix us. We need the bonding chemical oxytocin. We need to feel elevated by other women, not women who will compete with us, or try to tear us down, but a community of where a rising tide lifts all ships, and there is extreme generosity, and there is encouragement. And if you can do it, I can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. When you have that, however cheesy this sounds, Victoria, when you have hundreds of women blowing wind in your sails, there is nothing you can't do.
Yeah. It doesn't sound cheesy at all. Actually, I think that, I'm old enough to know when I'm old enough actually to have been born at a time when working women, whether you were working as an entrepreneur, very few of them actually worked as an entrepreneur when I started my company in 1989. But when I was working in corporate, women were often the people that would compete with you, that will compare. It's time to stop competing and comparing and start to lift other women and to really collaborate. And so everything you said, really resonates my own story. And when you talked about the passion and the purpose, I wrote a book called The $1 Million Passion, and it's about turning your passion and purpose into a dream business. And one thing we didn't get to talk about here is that Fabienne is a mother of 3 children, and she's built this incredible business, incredible community, and lifting, thousands of other women with her children, being a full-time mom. And I think that's the real gem. It is possible. I've done it, you've done it, and we both know a lot of other women who've done it. And you can all today do it. What that means is you just have to kind of like take a deep breath, scale back a little bit, and figure out what you're best at, what your passion is, because we all do things we don't want to do. I hate selling. I actually go on TV and sell. I hate selling. I'm not, I hate being pushy. There's a lot of things that we don't like doing. Now I have other people who actually do the selling for me. But kind of figure out what you're best at, what your passion is, and focus on that and delegate the rest. And if you're scared of delegating, if you don't know how, there's a great book that Fabienne wrote, their Leverage Business Program. And I suggest that you check that out. Fabienne, how do people connect with you if they want to learn more about this fascinating subject?
One of the best ways to find out more and maybe even get the book if this speaks to you is go to boldheart.com, bold heart, as in put your ear to your heart and then boldly go and do the thing. And the book is free there. You just cover, I think it's $2 in shipping, $2.95 in shipping. And you can read the just hundreds and hundreds of stories of other women who have gone from overwhelmed into creating businesses with little kids at home. I invite you to go watch those videos and read those stories so that you can increase your own belief in yourself. If others do it, there's no reason why you can't with the same resources.
And you can't put a value on that because the other people who have done it, I mean, I'm sure anybody who's done it, the road is not smooth. I mean, it's full of landmine, sharp turns and, some disappointments, but it's how you handle those. And when you connect with other women who've been there and seen things and who are, who have experienced things that you can't see now, there's a lot of value in that. So, unfortunately, when I started my business, I didn't have mentors. We didn't have online communities. There was no Facebook. There was no internet. Like in '89, I mean, really, like Microsoft was formed in '89. If that's how far back it goes. So there was no community of online people that I can connect to or mentor. I didn't even know there was a mentorship programs or anything like that. And I went to USC and there was some mentorship programs, but they were like in real estate or something. I designed jewelry, and talk about having people tell you need to go get a real job. Let me tell you something. That was pretty bad. So I got that a lot. But like I said, if I think it's the best benefit today, living today, like if you're a millennial mom, is having that online community, other people. The internet has opened a lot of doors, a lot of minds, and the mindset. Free books. It's just amazing. So take advantage of all of it. And again, as we close, I want to remind you, please stay happy and healthy, and happiness is a choice. And I hope you make great choices. If you have not subscribed to the show, please subscribe and share it with at least one person so we can amplify our voices and help more women out there, because that's why I'm here. I'm here to help other people succeed, because in my culture, in my family, you are not successful until you help other people succeed. So I'm just sort of here paying my dues. And thank you so much for coming on the show, Fabienne.
Thank you, Victoria. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to $1 Million Passion, where we turn dreams into reality and passion into profit. According to ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Congratulations on taking that first step today. For more information on how Victoria can help you turn your business idea into $1 million and to download Victoria's free ebook on passion-based business ideas, visit milliondollarpassion.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player.